go. Okay, so thank you for taking the time to join us for tonight's AI Hub session. I'm Stephanie Stetchenfinger. I'm one of the managers here in the Office of Student Affairs. I'm joined by my fellow Student Affairs Manager, Joe Kwame, and our PhD Psychology Academic Program Coordinator, Dr. John Agnew. For those of you who have joined us before for an AI Hub session, welcome back. You'll note the use of a new platform, so I hope that's an upgraded user experience for you. To those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. The AI Hub was started last year as a way for our students to connect with us on topics related to code of conduct and academic integrity. We've noticed that students really tend to have a lot of questions in these areas, and it's only grown in recent years from the rise of generative artificial intelligence. Some of our sessions will be completely open forums. We try to do them at least once per quarter, sometimes twice. But we've also had sessions where we provided short presentations on things like generative AI, like we're doing this evening, as well as plagiarism and other related topics. So we will provide that information, but we also try to provide plenty of opportunity for questions and comments. The purpose of these sessions is not just to provide you with support and resources, which of course we want to do, but also to find out from you what's important, what your experiences are with academic integrity, and how we can help you and your colleagues and other students really uphold those standards for the university. So a couple quick housekeeping items. This session will be recorded. And our goal is to provide an FAQ resource to you all afterwards. So any links that we provide to university resources or some important questions and answers, we'll put that all together for you so that you do have that afterwards to refer to. Please keep yourself muted at all times unless you're participating in a question or answer during that portion of our session. But please feel free to use the chat feature at any time. So if you think of something or you want to respond to something, Joe will try to keep up with all of the chatter there. We do encourage you to interact with us and your colleagues. That's really the purpose. Of course, please be respectful to one another. Feel free to share all of those questions, concerns, but be respectful. And additionally, this is not an appropriate forum to discuss any personal issues or situations, violations. So if you've had anything specific to you, please do not share that here. We want to keep it pretty general. So with that said, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Agnew, who is going to provide you an overview of generative AI and sort of where we stand here at Walden. Let me go ahead and allow him to share his presentation.
Thank you.
Let me know if you can take that over if you need me to do anything.
I think I've taken control. Have I?
Working on it. There we go.
You have. There you go.
Okay. Great. Technology is working for us today. Excellent news. It's always good. Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name, as Stephanie said, is John Agnew. I'm the program coordinator for our PhD psychology program here. And for the past 2 years, 3 years, I've been involved in generative AI, both as a field as a whole, but also specifically how we're using it and how we're going to implement it here at Walden. That being said, I do not have answers to all your questions. This field is literally changing by the day. And so Joe, Stephanie, and myself, we're happy to give you our understanding of the current policies, but please stay tuned because those are likely changing at any time. I don't have news that they're changing tomorrow, but I wouldn't be shocked either. So many of you submitted questions when you registered. I was shared with me a list of about 80 or 90 questions. They were all great, and I really appreciate your questions. I could answer them all in about an hour each. So if you all have 80 hours to share with me, I will answer all your questions. That being said, we've only got an hour scheduled. Stephanie was not planning ahead for all those questions, and she didn't send me enough food for 80 hours. So we're going to do our best to answer some of your questions. At the end, I do host a monthly AI community of practice for students at Walden. So the link for that will be in the frequently asked questions that Stephanie talked about. So I encourage you to come to visit me there and we can discuss your questions in more detail if you like. With that, let's get started and just give you a really quick overview of what generative AI is. So, artificial intelligence has been around for 60 years, 70 years in various forms. What we're most interested right now, what everybody's talking about right now, is a specific kind of artificial intelligence called generative artificial intelligence. That means it can generate natural sounding language in response to your questions. So, Gen AI or generative AI is this new branch that has been widely known for about 2.5 years at this point with ChatGPT that came out. Um, Walden has guidelines for this. I think I stole one of our questions. And we'll talk about those. We'll talk about how you can use generative AI ethically in the classroom and the importance of keeping you, the human, in the loop. Generative AI can do more and more and more, but remember, this is your education. You're here because you want to learn something. In the same way that if you want to get in better shape and you go to the gym and you bring a machine with you that will lift the weights for you, there's no benefit to you, right? Same thing is true for generative AI. Academia, school is a gym for your brain. If you have something else do the hard work of learning, and yes, it is hard work, you're not going to get the benefits. You might get a little piece of paper at the end, but you won't learn. And that's really why you're here. So, first of all, the important thing to remember, and I tell this to my faculty, I say this in many of the generative AI meetings I have, generative AI understands nothing. It is really convincing. I'm giving you this presentation because apparently somebody's decided I know something about this topic, and I still get fooled into thinking that ChatGPT understands me or Claude really gets the question I'm asking that time. It's not true. It has no understanding of anything you give it in any sense that you would describe as a human understanding. Think of it as maybe a fancy version of autocomplete. The companies that brought out these tools, whether it's Meta or Claude or OpenAI, have taken roughly 300 billion words. That's a lot of words. Um, on average, a page of text, when you type it up, has about 500 words. So if anybody was really good at math, 300 billion divided by 500 is, yeah, I'll just wait. Or I'll ask ChatGPT. It will know the answer. A lot of pages, roughly 570 gigabytes of data. This is from an older version of ChatGPT. The newer versions are trained on far more data, and OpenAI is going to be bringing out a new and better and spiffier model probably next week, GPT-5, that's going to be trained on even more data. In the same way that you're able to connect ideas. If I say fire truck, you're going to think red, you're going to think Dalmatian, you're going to think those funky coats they wear, you're going to think hoses and lights and sirens. In the same way that when I say fire truck, you think of all those connected ideas, the same thing we think is what's happening with these large language models. So it's just connecting ideas that it's found in those 300 billion words of human writing. And so when you say the fire truck, it goes and it finds that same connection. Sped, flashed its lights, had a Dalmatian. It's doing really pretty much something similar to you. One way to think of this is as an intern. Maybe ChatGPT is an intern that you can try out to have it take various tasks off your hands. It's getting better and better. So try it for outlining, try it for ideas, try it to get ways to come up with a title for a paper or a presentation. So maybe an intern who's really good at autocomplete is the easiest analogy for ChatGPT.
So I'm going to take an opportunity here to launch a poll and find out a little bit about your thoughts and experiences. This is the first
Perfect.
time I'm trying this, so I hope it's not too clunky for you. Let me give it a shot. You'd all review what I'm launching here and provide your response to the poll. Essentially, just asking, are you aware that Walden has a inte- generative artificial intelligence policy? There's no right or wrong answer.
And the poll is working well. I'm seeing the numbers change rapidly.
Perfect. See, when technology works the way it's supposed to, it's great.
It is fun, isn't it?
All right, we've got 100% answered.
And the numbers are climbing.
Yeah, we'll give it a quick minute. I know we have a lot of people that have joined us, so that's great. Okay,
So roughly 80% of people, 4 out of 5, are aware that there is a policy,
so that's good.
and 20% are not. I think faculty might be around the same place, to be honest.
Okay, and that poll, and if I share the results, I think it will post. Let's see. Oh, I think it just shares on the screen
Yeah, I think it shares up on the
there.
screen.
Okay, okay, great.
So that's great.
Thank you.
I think we had a second poll for this one, yes?
We do. I'm going to ask you something else here. All right. So, open-ended here. Please give us a brief one sentence, can be really brief, response on what you think the Gen AI guidelines are.
And again, no right answer here. And we are not going to display the answers because it's going to overwhelm us.
Yeah,
Stephanie's going to collect them for us, and
we'll
we're going to
collect
take a
them
look at
and
them.
yeah. Because again, the AI Hub, we want to provide you with information and resources, but we want to understand how we can help you with our initiatives and resources to make your experience as a student better.
Okay, we got about a third of the people have responded.
Great.
Oh, rapidly climbing. So please feel free to keep responding to that. And while you do that, I'm just going to move my window off to the side, hopefully not break anything, uh, and move on to talk about Walden's guidelines. We got more than half the people in here. So let me give you my understanding of Walden's guidelines. Ultimately, as I said before, academia and school is going to be hard work. And that's because you're learning something new. What it really boils down to, and there's nuances to this, and I'm sure you're all putting that in your answers right now, but all work must be your own in the end. You need to be able to say that, yes, this is my work. This represents my understanding of the topic accurately, and these are my ideas. If you ask me questions about them, I need to be able to answer you. So essentially, the academic integrity policy at my college growing up was don't lie, cheat, steal, or plagiarize. Same thing here. In a rough sense, if you're willing to talk about it, you're probably using it correctly. At this point, Walden's guidelines are that we're all learning. And if you do something that is inconsistent with our guidelines, but you do it honestly, we're really okay with that. Well, maybe Stephanie is okay too strong with that because we're all learning. We're certainly, my understanding as faculty is we're open to learning and having a discussion. And if you do something that I'm uncomfortable with, I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to have a discussion
Mhm,
about how you used it, how you could use it, why I'm concerned that you did not use it appropriately, and what we can do differently in the future. That's kind of the first step from the faculty's point of view.
mhm.
Okay.
That's fair.
Um, okay, so all work has to be your own. You can use generative AI tools. So our policy is that you have to be allowed to use generative AI tools. There is some subtlety there in that there can be assignments where faculty say, no, I don't want you to use a generative AI tool on this assignment. Ideally, they would explain why. I don't always have that much control, so I can't always get faculty to do that. But the idea is this is supposed to be educational for all of us. We can tell you why we don't think it's a good time to use this, why it's more valuable for you to learn to how to do the skill on your own. Um, but you can use these tools. It can be Grammarly, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. You have to cite them. If you're using a tool, you have to cite it the same way you would cite anything else. One of our questions in the registration was, if I use it for outlining, do I have to cite it? And our answer is going to be a definite maybe to that. So if you're quoting it directly, then yes, you have to cite it. If you got a significant idea that you're including in your paper, you should cite that and paraphrase it in the same way that you would any source. If you're using it as an outline, if you're using it to bounce ideas off of the way you might a friend or a family member, I'm thinking you don't have to cite that in APA format. Does that sound reasonable, Joe, Stephanie?
It does. So look, for me, it's the original work. So if it's ChatGPT's original work, you need to quote it and you need to cite it appropriately. If it's your original work, um, or if it's like you suggested, um, yeah, brainstorming or things of that nature, then you wouldn't necessarily have to cite it.
Right. Like if you get, give me five possible ideas for the title for this, and then you take one of them and then change it around some and make it your own. I think in that case, you probably don't need to quote and cite.
Yeah.
I,
And if you're truly using it for grammar, like you maybe say I write and it's supposed to say I wrote and it's just changing the tense for you, that's literally using it for grammatical corrections and that's not something you would need to cite, just like punctuation, things like that. If it's changing content for you in any significant way, that's something that you would need to cite.
you managed to get significant in there, so thanks. Now all we have to do is define significant.
Right, right.
Um,
Again, gray area. That's why we're doing these.
Absolutely. I think if it's changing content like a thesaurus, like, I'm old enough to remember a paper thesaurus that I went to look up other words that mean the same thing. I think if you're using a thesaurus, that's probably not a significant change to content.
I would agree with you.
But again, this we're open to discussions because we
Yeah,
don't have all the answers.
true.
Um, Ideally, paraphrase, do not quote directly. Include APA citations if it did come up with, to steal Stephanie's words, significant contributions. Paraphrase it or quote it as you would any other source, and then cite it. APA has issued guidance on how to cite that. The link is here in the slides, and that will be included, I believe, in the information we share after this. One of the concerns with generative AI is for information security. So what we put into it, especially the versions that are free, generally speaking, on the internet, if you don't pay for it, you are the payment. So it's taking your information, and that's Gmail. That is the free version of any of these AI tools. If you're not paying for it, they're taking your information and doing something with it. So if you are putting something in there, the concern is what's happening to that? Is it training the next generation of the model? Are people able to extract exactly what you put in? I don't know. Nobody knows. So don't put anything private or confidential into the AI tools. Microsoft Copilot is the exception to that. Microsoft Copilot is included with your Walden University fees and technology and all of that. So if you go to copilot.microsoft.com, that link will also be in what we send out afterwards, and you log in with your Walden credentials, you will see at the top right of the screen a little green shield that indicates data protection is engaged. Walden's lawyers and IRB and all of that have looked at that, and they have said that is a good enough data protection that you can even put research data in there and ask it. If you're doing that, please talk to your committee first. Do not just put it in there and have at it. That's something I'm from the dissertation side of the world. So for that use case, you definitely need to talk to your dissertation committee and disclose that to the IRB before you do it. But if you're assuming you've accomplished that, we do consider Copilot to be a secure tool and a private tool. If you're setting up an account on ChatGPT or on OpenAI or Claude or any of those other things, and it's something that's not through Walden, Walden's policies are that you do not use your Walden email address. So use a personal address like a Gmail or something like that. The other guideline we have is keep a transcript of your interactions. So that history, that back and forth you have with the AI tool, save that. Your faculty has the right to request that to see what you've done. Remember, as I've been saying, academia and school is hard work. We want to teach you to think critically. You can show your critical thought by how you interacted with the tool. So save that transcript. Some tools allow you to download it. Some allow you to have a link to it that you can share with others. Whatever it is, save that interaction. Um, so every classroom is different. We are asking our faculty in PhD psychology to have an AI policy in every classroom because my understanding of what you can do with AI is different. If Stephanie were teaching a class, if Joe were teaching a class, they would probably have different versions of what you can use AI for. And so we ask that there is an AI policy in every classroom. It isn't always there. I understand that. But talk to your instructor if you want to use it. Say, my best advice for this is transparency. I ask my faculty to be transparent when they use it. I'm asking my students to do the same thing. Talk to the instructor and say, here's what I want to do, or here's what I did do. I was taking an online class and I got to be the student in that class. And we had a final project for that. And I said to the instructor, I'm going to be using OpenAI to help me generate this end product. I will show you the transcript. I'm going to go back and forth and ask it questions and ask it to fill in some more details or change this. I will show you my critical thinking, but I'm going to have ChatGPT do a lot of the typing for me and coming up with creative ways to say things, to be that intern. And I was transparent about it, disclosed it, and they said that was fine. Walden does have several resources to help guide you with this. We have using AI tools, AI Essentials course for students, and Oasis did a whole series on AI done right. So all three of these links are in your resources that we're going to share with you.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick, John. I quietly published our third poll
Perfect.
just to get a sense of whether anyone has seen the Gen AI policy published in the classroom. And honestly, the vast majority said no, which means that that's an area of an improvement for us. If we're not publishing it or if we're not advertising it well enough, we want to make sure that we do provide that transparency and that you're aligned with the expectations of each faculty member. So that's really great input from you. I'm going to end
Absolutely.
that poll here. Most people did respond. And with that, I'm going to launch another question for you before John talks a little bit about uses of Gen AI. So we want to know, and again, no right or wrong answer, have you ever used a Gen AI tool for your coursework? So we just want to get a sense of how many people are actually utilizing it, if it's something that you encounter frequently.
Yeah. And we know from a pulse check, I didn't check these numbers before I came in, but a pulse check that was done about a year ago, something like a third to a half of students were using it to some extent in their classes. And here it looks like we're a little bit higher than that. Almost two-thirds of people are using it for coursework. And that's fine. Like I said, Walden's policy is that you can use it. There are lots and lots and lots of ways you can use it. We'll ask that in our next poll, as I recall. But we're going to,
I'll
again,
share the
encourage,
results real quick.
perfect, thank you. Encourage transparency. So talk to your instructors, talk about how you're using it, see if that's acceptable to them. But just be transparent. If you're hesitant to talk to them about how you're using it, there's a really good chance you're not using it appropriately. That gut check of I'm hesitant to use it tells you something. So, how might you try to use it in the classroom? We've put up several possibilities here that have been talked about in other forums. So, take a moment to click on those. I think it's set up so you can pick as many as you want.
I'm not sure that it will, so I apologize. I tried to set it up that way. It looked like there might have been a limitation. So do your best to answer it. You may utilize it for more than one way, but
If
I'd
you only,
say
yeah, if
if
it
you,
only let you pick one, pick your favorite.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, reverse outlining, the idea is you're going to have an outline, either mentally or written out before you write. Once you write your paper, you can ask OpenAI or Claude to create a reverse outline. So it will create an outline from what you've already written. If that doesn't match what your outline said initially, there was a whoops somewhere in the process. So it's a great check to see if you actually hit all your goals and did what you planned to. For brainstorming is a great use. Like, how could I address this? What are some other ways to talk about this? Give me 5 examples. That's one thing that a lot of people talk about with AI is don't just ask for one. It's a tireless intern. Ask for 5, ask for 10 examples of ways to explain this. And if you only like 2 of them, say, I didn't really like those. I like numbers 5 and number 7. Give me 10 more based on those. It's a tireless intern. It will happily go back and do this again and again and again.
So someone did say that it allowed them to choose more than one option. So that's great.
Okay,
That's what I intended.
wonderful.
But I'm just showing the results with everyone so you can kind of get a sense of what people say they're using it for. The majority look like brainstorming, followed by editing a final document. We have a couple in there for reverse outlining and then a couple for content creation also.
And
So
summarizing, yeah,
yeah, we can talk about that a little bit more in future slides and once we open it up to discussion.
absolutely. Okay, so
Thank
it
you.
looks like a lot of people are using it and they're using it in a lot of different ways. Excellent, good job. The real take home here is stay involved. Do not just outsource your thinking, your writing, your schoolwork to generative AI. Most people who look at generative AI writing at this point would say it's very boring. It's impersonal, it's formulaic. It is clear to people who have read AI writing versus human writing which one was written by a real live breathing human. So keep your voice in what you submit in the class. Again, writing is supposed to be hard. It helps you change and clarify your thinking on the topic. At the doctoral level, we want to challenge you to think critically, to integrate ideas and information from different sources. All of that is the hard work of learning, in the same way that actually lifting the weights or going for the run is the hard work of exercise. So do not give up on that just because it's hard. That's why you're here. That's why you signed up for education. One concern with AI is what are we doing to our brains and our own cognitive abilities if we get too reliant on it? So one thing, I use it a lot. I don't hide that at all from my supervisor. I can generate information and reports much faster with this, which enables me to think longer and to come up with more questions to ask it. So I can generate the report, and while it's percolating, it's doing this little spinny thing on the screen, I can go, it'd be really interesting if we actually followed up with this and with this, and what about that? So I don't get worn out just generating the kind of low level stuff. It enables me to go further with my thinking. So I am acutely aware that if I give up on critical thinking, I will lose that skill. And so I take the output, I check it to make sure it's accurate, because that's always a concern. But then spend some time with it thinking critically, what could we do next? What's the next question to ask? And I may turn that next question right back to Claude or ChatGPT because it can answer it faster than I can. But it gives me the time to think about what those questions are.
So
So
if I can
practice,
jump in real quick there, John, you're making a really good point about how formulaic, impersonal it can be, how it can be riddled with errors at times. I think that's a really good exercise if anyone has spare time and wants to play with it on their own. I know that there are several instructors here at Walden that incorporate this exercise into their classroom, but I encourage you to use one of these AI tools. Feed something to it and see what it spits out, and then analyze it and fact check it so that you can see that, yeah, it sounds really great, but don't take it at face value. Dive deeper into it and compare it to how you would write something so that you can see how formulaic it looks, and you can see that maybe the references it's providing to you are incorrect, inaccurate. The data that it's providing to you is incorrect or inaccurate. Play around with it a little bit so that you can see that it is not perfect, and that, to John's point, in order to learn, you have to keep that human element engaged so that you're actually getting something out of your education.
yeah, what a lot of people do, both here at Walden and elsewhere, is they will actually take the classroom prompt or what they would use in a classroom prompt, put that into AI, and then the response from AI now becomes the assignment. So the faculty have actually answered their own question and they give it to you, the students, and say, critique this. How does this compare to what you would say based on our class readings and what you've learned? And most people walk away from that going, AI sucks. It's just not that good. And I've got a much better way to say it. So it depends on what your use case is. If it's something kind of low level that's low stakes, then it's a great place to use it to kind of explore the field and get a start. But I recommend you only do that for fields that you actually know something about. Because I asked it for a description, I think it was an ANOVA, and it gave me the completely wrong answer. It told me that the independent variable should be continuous and the dependent variable should be categorical. If you haven't taken stats in a while and that doesn't make any sense, don't worry about it. It's 100% wrong. It got it completely backwards. My independent variable needs to be categorical. My dependent variable needs to be continuous. So don't trust it. And I told, I think it was Claude that I did this with. I said, can you explain that again? What is categorical and what is the independent variable? And went, oh, I'm so sorry. I got that backwards. Thank you for pointing it out. I'll do better next time. It's very friendly. Again, understands nothing, but very personable. Um, okay, and so the last thing I want to say is we do have a generative AI community of practice here at Walden. I started this a couple months ago, and I have no agenda for any of these meetings. I don't come prepared other than bringing my brain. I just answer whatever questions people bring. So I encourage you, if you have questions, if you just want to sit and listen, the problem with that is sometimes only one person shows up and they came in to sit and listen and they wind up discussing for an hour. So far, it's worked out pretty well. So if you've got questions, if you have use cases, if you have something that's exciting you or scaring you, come join us. It's the first Tuesday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The link is here on the slides and will be, I think, in the chat and also in the summary of the meeting we send out. So with that, Stephanie, that's all I have, but I'm sure there are questions.
Yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth in the chat. And I appreciate that you are all helping each other and sharing your experiences and providing resources to each other. That was one of the goals that we had for AI Hub is to facilitate that connection and provide a forum for you to ask questions and provide feedback. Like I said, we aim to have at least one per quarter. Sometimes we'll do two. There will be topical information. We'll have John, we'll have another member of our staff or faculty come and share information. Other times we'll just keep it open for the full hour and say, what do you guys want to talk about? And allow you to facilitate that conversation. Sometimes it's a combination of both, which this one is. And I really love and appreciate all of the discussion there. Were there any specific questions, Joe? I was trying to scroll through that stood out to you that
Yeah,
maybe.
there were a couple of. So one of them uh, that was early on in the presentation, but we'll go. I think it's a good one to revisit a little bit if it wasn't discussed deeper earlier. Um, if you're using AI for brainstorming and you create and to create supplemental documents for like an appendix, what are the guardrails that you would need to continue to maintain integrity?
So you've so the supplemental document is the transcript, or it's a part of the assignment or an add-on to the assignment?
Yeah, so it's a part of an add. I would assume it's part of an add-on to an assignment. So if you're, or they're just saying, I use it for these different things, right? What are academic integrity concerns that we should be aware of? So if you're brainstorming or creating supplemental documents, what are the concerns we might have with any kind of academic integrity? For me, uh, to start out with brainstorming, I don't believe that there are any academic integrity concerns that you would have unless you're taking it, copying what the Gen AI spit out to you and pasting it as your own words. That would be the guardrails that I
Yeah.
would have for brainstorming for different documents or supplemental materials that Gen AI is creating on your behalf. Um, I don't know if John, you would have.
There's no settled case law on this, just to be clear. At least none that I'm aware of, in terms of academic integrity policies or things like that. I think the key is being transparent.
Right.
I think we're in a rough time, honestly, for the next 5 years as we get this figured out. If a student presented that to me, I think I'd want to talk to them. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying, if your faculty member says, I need to talk to you about this, that's not a bad thing. We're often trying to learn ourselves. So Joe, if you were my student and you presented something like that, I think I'd say, Joe, can we have a meeting? I want to understand what you did. Um, as long as, and this is just me, this is not the Office of Student Affairs speaking, this is not every other Walden instructor. For me, Joe, if you understand the material and you can explain it to me, I honestly don't care how the words got on the page. I don't care if you went back and forth with ChatGPT. I don't care if you got out a chisel and put them onto stone and somehow got them into the computer. If you understand, that's really the end result of education, in my opinion. Um, Beyond that, the point of citation and academic integrity and writing is to give credit to the people that had the ideas first. If somebody came up with an idea that was good, they deserve credit. Flip that around. If your idea is so good that other people want to talk about it, don't you deserve credit? It seems pretty simple and straightforward to me. Whether that entity is another human or now ChatGPT, I think it probably comes down to about the same thing. We need to give credit to the originator of those ideas. If you're taking ChatGPT's ideas, um, makes an interesting philosophical point because where did ChatGPT get the ideas? But we'll
That's
leave that
right.
aside.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um, but if your source of this novel combination of ideas is ChatGPT, cite it. I think I think we're going to move to a system in probably in the not too distant future where there's going to have to be some sort of disclaimer on the document. I wrote this in combination with ChatGPT. It is a large language model. I reviewed all the work and I have I attest to the validity and the accuracy of all the content. In other words, if ChatGPT messed something up, it's on me. I own that. And that's, I think, the cost of using it. If we're going to use these tools, I can't blame ChatGPT for getting something wrong.
Mm,
So if I'm going to use it as my final statement and submit it as my work, then I've got to be responsible if something goes wrong.
fair point.
So I would, my picture changed. It's now Stephanie instead of Joe in front of me. But Joe, you're still my student. You can't hide like that. If you submitted that to me, I'd ask you, do you understand the assignment? I'd ask you questions about it to assess your understanding. And I'd ask, okay, so what is this extra document you gave me? And you'd say, well, it created a new questionnaire that might be possible to use for this kind of research. And I'd be like, that's very interesting. Okay, that's ChatGPT's work. You did understand the assignment. Great. We'll grade you based on that. I'm going to, for the moment, I'm going to kick down the road the question of what do I do with that other assignment? If it's not directly related to what I'm grading in the classroom, I think we may wind up having other discussions like, okay, what can I do with this? How can I validate it? There are ways to do that with instruments. And so maybe what we do is we take ChatGPT's questions and now validate it through the normal instrument development process. That's the best I got off the top of my head.
I
Can we
think that
speak?
sort of ties into one of the questions that stood out to me here in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with them all, so I apologize if we don't directly answer your questions. Please send them to us after if we don't address it, because we do still want to work through that. It says if a piece of work is suspicious of being AI generated, what is the procedure taken by the class's professor? And what would be some red flags with AI generated work? Have you ever seen authentic work that looks like it was AI generated, rated, but proven to not be so? I'm sure there's been instances of that, but I wanted to talk about sort of the procedures and processes. Like John mentioned earlier, really faculty are encouraged to have that discussion with faculty. There should be transparency on both sides. So if faculty is looking at your work and says, hey, something looks a little off to me, can we talk about this? I understand the inclination to probably get very defensive. But if an instructor does come to you and say, hey, I want to talk about your work, please remember that it is so that they can assess your learning. That is their goal. That is why you are here to learn. So if they have a discussion with you and find, I don't think you really learned anything, they want to find out why and what they can do to change that so that you're not paying for a degree that's not worth anything to you because you didn't learn anything. That's the least that they would want. So they are encouraged to talk to students about that, whether it be by email, by phone, whatever the case may be, but to engage in that conversation. There's a lot of red flags, I think, with AI generated work. To John's point, voicing above all else. It has a certain sound to it, and the more that you see it, the more that you read it, you notice that doesn't sound like something somebody would typically write. It's very calculated. Sometimes, not always, it is riddled with errors. So, looking at references, you can often find, well, that doesn't exist, or it exists in a different way. It's not all that information is there. It tends to use a lot of like really strange characters and punctuations that people wouldn't typically use. It's formatted oddly sometimes. So, those are some of the things that often stand out. Anything else that you would add, Joe or John?
I would
Yeah.
add that yes, people have been accused of using AI and it was found to not be the case. There was a very famous case about 2 years ago of a professor down in Texas who accused his entire senior class of using AI for their final assignments. They wound up not walking at graduation because he failed them from the class. And it was later shown that no, they had actually generated their own work. So these things do happen. I don't know what happened in the end of that case, but it was a mess, and I'm glad it wasn't here at Walden.
And Joe also posted from our code of conduct the process of reporting potential academic integrity concerns. I mentioned sort of the mild situation where faculty would engage in a conversation. In some of the more extreme situations where there are really serious concerns, an academic integrity inquiry may go out. And again, it's not to necessarily cause panic. An inquiry letter is not an accusation, although it probably feels like that. So I can understand that point of view, but it is an opportunity to say, hey, there's some concerns here. We need to address this formally. So if a student ever gets that integrity concern, just like if they just get a random email saying, I want to talk about it, it is your responsibility to provide your response to that so that you can engage in that back and forth. And then it allows us to do a more thorough review on what actually occurred.
I think it's important too, if you're using generative AI, that if you were to get an academic integrity inquiry letter, that you have that opportunity to respond uh, to the allegations, right? And in that opportunity, you can provide the input and
Mhm.
the output to
Mhm.
show that it was your original ideas, the that it was your original work. Um, and so uh, if you're keeping those things, which you should be, if you're choosing to use generative AI, that will provide your justification. That will provide your defense um, to any kind of inquiry that your faculty might have.
Somebody asked if students should be required to watch a tutorial on Gen AI. Um, it's highly encouraged. I wouldn't use the word required because we know students have a lot on their plate, so we don't want to pile on the requirements necessarily. But I think in order to be a successful student, everyone should take advantage of a lot of the resources that are available. It is really your responsibility as a student to be as well informed as you can be. So those are really there, not as a penalty, but as an opportunity for you to know what's what, especially with Gen AI. To John's point, it changes literally every single day. We can't keep up with it, so we can't expect you to. But it is your responsibility to be well informed.
And I think it goes well beyond education because this is something
Yeah,
which is in the workplace. There's a huge
absolutely.
debate right now as to whether or not AI will replace your jobs or enhance your jobs.
Mm.
And not saying that as a scare tactic, it's just literally the people that know AI best, which is not me, to be clear, are having a very lively debate as to whether this is going to kill the entry-level job or it's going to make it so much, it's going to make more entry-level jobs and more human jobs just different from what they are now. But nobody disagrees that AI will be here and will be part of our lives.
So Diane has her hand raised. Diane, do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question or share your comment?
Yes, thank you so much. Good night, everyone. This is an excellent discussion. One of the things I'd really hope I can capture before we end, because what I'm hearing is, yes, we can use AI, but you have to be transparent. But I think what would be very useful to hear, if that exists, is within the context of our DRPH work. What really is allowed? Because I do agree that we face the risk of degenerating cognitively over time. But I've also heard as well that employers are saying that they would give, I mean, coming to the table with capacity in using AI tools is an asset now. So the question is, how do you navigate that? I mean, it's a tricky one, I think, especially for, I guess, our younger audiences. I guess probably our more mature people, we probably are a little more conservative in our use. But I would like to get a sense as to, okay, what really, if we had to be really ethical, how best to do this while ensuring that at the end of the day, we're not sacrificing um, quality and scholarly rigor for, well, experience, you know? Yes, thank you. So I'm hoping I can hear that before we leave. Thanks.
I think uh, I think your question is going a long way to solving your question. The fact that you're concerned about this and the fact that you're thinking about this and being responsible for remaining engaged, retaining those cognitive abilities is a big step in the right direction. As I said, I use it a lot, and I'm in academia. I value my critical thinking. I value my cognitive skills enormously. Um, to me, being aware that that is a risk, and therefore very deliberately not just giving all of this information to ChatGPT and asking it for a summary or a report to give my supervisor, and then just handing it off without thinking about it. Um, by making the choice to be aware, okay, this is a tool. This is something I can use to come up with the first stage of the report. Now ask it more questions. Say, no, no, I didn't like that answer. Give me this. Think about it in that way. What other ways could we combine this information? All of that is keeping my brain active and engaged. And I think that's the important first step, maybe first, second, and third steps to not giving up on those human cognitive abilities. The people that I would be much more worried about compared to Diane would be those who say, oh, here's the prompt, copy, paste into ChatGPT, essentially without looking at it, copy the answer, paste into Classroom, submit, walk away.
Yep.
Those people, A, you're going to be getting letters from Joe and Stephanie. But beyond that, you're also not doing yourselves a favor because you're not putting in the effort.
Yeah.
Your cognitive abilities will atrophy quickly.
No, that was a really great question, Diane. I think that was a great answer, John. And the word deliberate stood out to me. Because I think if you're making that deliberate attempt to balance the two, to understand, to recognize that it is a tool, it is a supplemental tool, and that it should not be replacing anything. That's sort of the first step, right? Is that acknowledgement. Because unfortunately, we have encountered situations where it is that here's the prompt, copy and paste. Here's the prompt, copy and paste. What did someone get out of that? Probably absolutely nothing, to be honest. So yeah, not only being at risk of getting an academic integrity inquiry, you learned nothing. You racked up student loans for what? For a piece of paper, great, it might be a means to an end. But if you are in a field, and I emphasize this because I worked with a lot of our nursing students specifically, if you're in a field like nursing, like counseling, in any type of helping profession, you absolutely need that knowledge to remain ethical and to remain safe. So those are some of the things that I emphasize. I think about those students who are doing this to help other people. You absolutely need that expertise. And that's not just on the job training, it's the knowledge that you're getting from this degree. So we've got about 5 minutes. I don't want to steamroll anything here. There's so many great questions, and I really love this, and that's why I want to continue these conversations. We did have someone else raise their hand. Erna, if you want to go off mute.
I actually put a comment in there.
Okay.
One thing I was going to add, it took me a while to even wanted to use ChatGPT. It was like, oh, do I use it? Because, and just a reminder to everyone, they have no brains. The AI have no brain, and they don't have a thought process to how you feel about your topic, how you feel about your study. So for me, it's just using it for, did I miss something because I'm reading my document so much? The format, you know what I'm saying? Or my reference. That's it. I keep it simple because it is not going to guide me to my direction of my study. If people think it is, it's not really, because then when you go back and you read what it gives you, they'll be like, oh my God, this is not what I intended, but that's what you accepted. So that's part of the thing. I don't use ChatGPT, but just for a second eye. Did I miss the spelling? Did I, you know what I'm saying, format? And saying that you can be really specific to ChatGPT what you wanted to do. I need you to review reference. I need you to make sure my reference are up to date. And actually, it will tell you that. It will say, okay, you're not consistent with your reference. You got to go back and verify them and stuff. And your reference is going to be outdated because it's past that time period. You, the individual, it's got to be on you to decide, okay, what am I going to use ChatGPT for? Is it going to be specific for certain things? And I only use it for specifically rather, just to reference, format, I'm saying the boundary, make sure, because when you're typing, you just type in, and certain things might change. You don't recognize it has changed, but it has that capability to recognize that. The point I'm leading to say people use it for what it's there. If there's a lot of good in it, don't use it for the wrong thing because you're running out of time and everything. Because the moment you change and add Chat GPT or anything else into it, then it stops being yours and it starts being theirs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're
I use
correct.
it only for the function that it needs to. I had to move from I don't want to use it till my professor said, you can go ahead and use it. I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to use it till, but like I said, use it till after your paper is done to the most, because then you can't be steered one direction or the other. It's there. It's going to be critical. It's something to be very critical analyzing your paper. You can be specific to what you want ChatGPT to do for you.
Thank you for that input. It is scary. It's a scary prospect. I'll be very candid. It's very scary to me. I'm very apprehensive about the use of generative AI. I don't hide that at all. I think as a university, we absolutely embrace it, and everyone has their own individual thoughts on it. I know we're up to an hour. I don't want to hold people. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to engage in this conversation. I think it's really, really important. I highly encourage all of you to send any questions or comments you have to that OSA email. I do fully intend to put together some FAQs if we can provide that to you after so that you have some resources to take away. We will continue to have these sessions. John has his sessions. One thing I would ask from all of you, if you don't mind, just thinking about this conversation, what would you tell another student about ethical use? If you have an incoming student or if you have a colleague or coworker that's like, oh, I just copy and paste and I just spit it out. What would you tell them? What recommendations or advice would you have? Because that's what we want to share with other students too, to discourage any unethical use for someone who thinks, oh, it's just so easy. If you think of anything, share it with us via email because I'd like to incorporate that in any future sessions or resources.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
I think I will end by saying I think people have been talking about references in the chat. I think that's one of the least reliable areas of Gen AI use at this point. So if you go to Claude, if you go to ChatGPT, it just does not do a good job with references. As Erna mentioned, talking about formatting, it may be good at that and looking for consistencies. Somebody talked about Zotero. I mentioned EndNote. There's another tool called Research Rabbit. That one's actually Gen AI based. And the Oasis set of talks on AI, using AI correctly, or whatever that series was. The references in the summary you'll get did talk about Research Rabbit, but I would not use AI for references at this point.
A lot of great comments continuing to come in. So thank you. Thank you for your engagement with this. And continue to advocate for yourself and the learning that you're here for. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Everyone have a really great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Keep sending in those questions.
I'm going to stop the recording.